Hey, folks, we're here at ng-conf. I lied. We're doing one more. I'm here with Steve Belovarich. And when are you speaking, Steve?
I'm speaking Thursday from 12 to 1:50 in the Murano room. I'm actually doing a workshop on writing a custom Angular build.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You need to hold the mic a little closer to your mouth. What does that entail? Custom Angular build.
Well, I mean, we have the CLI, right?
Uh-huh.
Which a lot of teams use, right? It does a lot of good things.
And build.
Yes.
All done.
Yeah.
Short workshop.
Fucking ship it, So, but I mean, any CLI can't do everything.
Right.
And so where I work at Semantic, and and so we needed some tooling to be able to integrate Angular with a lot of the ways our teams like to build web applications, right?
Yep.
So I started building out some custom tools with some Node.js like scripts, right? And then I ended up becoming very fond of that task, and I open sourced a little bit of something, some tooling that was inspired by what I was doing at work. It's called Angular Rollup. Which is kind of a misnomer because right now, I mean, the build doesn't even use rollup for production, which is fine.
Yeah.
But last year at ng-conf, I saw all the wonderful work the Angular team was doing at Clojure compiler compatibility. And so I took that and ran with it. And I wrote a build that used Clojure compiler to optimize our web applications, and it worked out really great. So I was very fond of it, and so yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
why tools?
Why tools?
Yeah. A lot of people that they want to go build the flashy thing on the web, right?
Yeah. It's not about that. It's just whatever works for you, right? I mean, I'm really of the opinion that your team should be able to, or even if you're working by yourself, you should be able to do things the way that you feel most comfortable.
Absolutely.
Right? And so if that's using the Angular CLI, that's great.
Yep.
But I mean, if you need to do something that's going to take the CLI off the rails, then it's probably about time to learn how some of these things work, right?
Yep.
Like how the ahead of time compiler does what it does, or how to optimize your web application the best way possible. And so in order to do that, you have to write a script, right? That will build your application in the way that you prefer.
Nice. So in your workshop, are you going to show people how to use the Clojure compiler? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to go step by step, and we're going to write a custom build using Node.js scripts that basically takes your Angular application. We're going to make a development environment for that web application. We're going to put the ahead of time compiler in watch mode, and everybody's going to be able to spin up a live reload server, see how watch mode works. They're actually going to call ngc with the P flag pointing towards tsconfig with the watch argument, see how all that's working, and then see how they can then ahead of time compile their application and then build and then optimize it with Clojure compiler. I'm going to take everybody through the configuration needed in Clojure compiler. It's really not that difficult. Clojure compiler can be somewhat intimidating at first, I found. But I mean, it is a really amazing tool for optimizing JavaScript. And so it's going to be nice to share that with everybody.
Very cool. Were there things you had to pull out just due to time constraints or anything like that? Or were you able to get everything in that you wanted?
Yeah, I think I was able to get everything in the workshop that I wanted to. I did reformulate it a little bit just to fit it into the 2 hours that I have. But I think all of the key points are there, right?
Right. Sounds good. So how long did it take you to get to the point where you were comfortable with this?
With what?
With Clojure compiler and building Angular with it and things like that?
It only took me about a week. There's a lot of really good documentation. I ended up striking up a correspondence with Alex Eagle on the Angular team. He helped me through a little bits of the really difficult parts, especially when we moved from Angular 4 to Angular 5. There was a little bit of a hiccup.
Oh, okay.
But other than that, it has been relatively easy. You do have to code your Angular application in certain ways to make Clojure happy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a little bit. It doesn't really curtail your development experience at all. It's just you have to be very aware of how Clojure is going to mangle your application. And for instance, you can run into a scenario where you may have like an asynchronous response from an HTTP request, and Clojure may not know really what to do with the object that is coming through that response.
Right.
Now, if you have everything strictly typed in your application, that goes a long way.
Oh, really?
Because there's this tool called Sickle, right, that the Angular team brought out about a year ago, that will convert all of the TypeScript annotations to Clojure annotations.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. And so that's how Clojure really optimizes your application, right? Because there's actual annotation that is Clojure script that does wonderful magic.
Right.
But there are compiler flags that you can use to make sure that your ahead of time compiled code has the Clojure annotations in it. So then when Clojure picks up your code base, it can just run with it and optimize it.
Cool. Very cool. So so people coming into your workshop, what are they going to come out with? Are they going to come out with a working build script then?
Yeah, that they can either use to extend and do something with, right? Or they can just use that as a lesson to write their own build script. Right. Maybe they have an opinion of how it should be written a different way, which is totally fine.
Very cool.
But yeah, the main reason that I really wanted to present this at ng-conf this year was because I've been beta testing Bazel. And I found how amazing it is for our development environments at Symantec. And I feel like it's almost a prerequisite to understand how Angular is built before you can even get to Bazel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Bazel is a lot of config. A lot. We have one UI library where I just had to write about 84 Bazel.build configuration files for Bazel.
Wow.
Yeah. And so...
Doesn't the CLI do a lot of that for you, though?
I don't know. I don't think there is an automated way to do it yet.
Oh, I thought was kind of the next step with
that
the CLI.
That is the next step. This is a thing that the CLI may do in the future. Maybe it does it. Maybe they'll announce something. I don't know. But I haven't heard anything yet that does it. But it would be fairly simple, I think, eventually to statically analyze an Angular application as long as it follows the style guide to some degree and be able to spit out Bazel build files.
Okay.
Right. I began down that path and I was like, well, yeah, we could probably make this work. But yeah, I think it is a prerequisite that you have to understand how the ahead of time compiler is working. You have to understand how to maybe build, pre-compile your Sass first before you're running the ahead of time compiler. You have to understand the steps that it takes before you can even jump into Bazel.
Yeah, makes sense. So, people are using this right now at Symantec.
Yeah, like a variation of a theme. Right. So, so at Symantec, we build Angular a few different ways, but there are teams building with Clojure compiler. Yeah.
Very cool. Now, one of the things that I'm hoping to do with these interviews is give people a chance to kind of get to know the speakers.
Yeah.
And, specifically, I feel like people get into the talks a little more when they feel like they identify in some way with the speakers. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself, where you're from,
Sure.
Things like that, and maybe a few personal details so people are like, oh, yeah, that's the guy that,
Sure. Yeah. Like I started developing out of my bedroom in high school in the 90s. I wrote my first lick of JavaScript in Notepad, and then watched it come to life in Netscape Navigator. Right.
Dude, you're old.
Yeah, I know. I feel old saying that, right?
Oh, I know exactly how you feel. I'm sitting here going, yeah, I know that story.
But I ran a small business out of my room. I ran an anime fan sub distribution service.
Oh, wow.
I would literally copy VHS tapes nonstop for people that would send me money orders. And I had a website, and I would show people exactly what I had that I could distribute to them. But yeah, and then I went to college at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute for electronic art, which was a combination of computer science and art making.
Right.
And I went to graduate school at Syracuse for the same thing, computer art. And from there, I moved to Los Angeles, and for about 10 years, I was working freelance. I was just working on all sorts of different projects for different clients, and then I started working for corporations maybe like 5 to 7 years ago.
Right.
And I've been going from corporation to corporation, helping them build UI libraries and build front-end applications for whatever the purpose was at the time.
So if you're not building UI libraries or things like that, what do you do in your spare time?
Oh yeah, so I am an avid hiker. I've logged about 700 miles on the Appalachian Trail.
Oh wow!
I go hiking in Yosemite a lot because I live in California.
Right.
I love to bicycle. I bicycle to work every day. I make art. I make art a lot in my free time. I actually show fine art in galleries from time to time.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm just going to take a second and thank our sponsor, Kendo UI. They've been sponsoring these interviews. They sponsored the interviews at NG Atlanta too. So if folks are looking for more interviews, there are about 20 of them there. But yeah, they do awesome component stuff for Angular. So if you're looking for visual components, they probably have what you need. And I mean, it's all put together. That's the thing that I like about it. So I can go and I can solve the hard stuff. And since I'm not so good at making it pretty stuff, I can kind of pick and choose what I want, and it'll fill a lot of that in for me.
Oh yeah.
And it's powerful stuff.
Yeah, they had a wonderful T-shirt at last year's ng-conf that I get lots of compliments on. The little kendo guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I think I have that same shirt, and I think I was wearing it on the way home from one of the conference that I got it at. I don't know if it was this one or a different one, but yeah, I walked in the house and my 12-year-old was like, "Dad, cool ninja."
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the response.
Yeah. And Kendo's a martial art, so yeah. So go check out the Cool Ninja company that is Kendo UI. So I guess the only thing that I'm running into is when you write these tools, a lot of that programming is Node, right, as opposed to Angular that you're writing?
Well, it could be in a lot of different flavors of languages, right? So yes, yeah, but a lot of the same principles, that we use on the front end can be applied to back end tools, right?
Yeah.
So, So, I mean, I chose to use Node.js as my vehicle for writing these scripts.
Right.
But I mean, you could write a Bash script, right? You could probably do this in Python if you wanted.
Probably.
I mean, it's whatever it's whatever tool you think you're probably familiar with, right? I chose JavaScript, just because I write JavaScript every day.
Yeah. Well, and most of these tools are written in JavaScript too, so it makes it.
There's an amazing ecosystem. In Node.js, right?
Very cool. So how long does it take semantics products to build with this system? Like when you kick it off?
Well, right now our development server builds in around 4.5 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And then for applications that scale like at a very big scale, that may go up to like 7 or 8 seconds.
Dang, that's fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the ahead of time compiler is really fast, right? I mean, I think the Angular team really did a great job at keeping the compile time, especially in watch mode, down to around 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And so you have that benchmark, right? Your build is always going to take 2 seconds. And then whatever tooling you have beyond that it's up to you to figure out how to make that fast.
Yeah.
Right. And so one way I make our build scripts fast is I asynchronously run tasks in parallel. Right. So like I split up our build process. So like if we need to copy over library dependencies, which is a pretty chunky thing to do. Right. We run that in parallel with having the ahead of time compiler run. Right. So that's one way to speed things up.
That makes sense. I just imagine these builds that take, minutes or hours sometimes.
Yeah.
And, in other systems, that's just a reality, right?
Yeah.
But if it takes longer than it takes me to utter the words, "What's on Twitter?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The purpose has been defeated.
Yes.
So it being that fast is nice.
Yes. The production build, I'm kind of the opinion that can take as long as it needs to take.
Right. You put it on a CI/CD machine and it just goes.
Yes. Yeah. But we need to keep our development environments very fast, very efficient, because nobody's got time for that. Nobody can wait around, while their code's compiling, and they're just, and especially when you're making a change, to your code, you should see that lightning fast.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that fast feedback keeps you in the cycle.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, it keeps everybody productive. And sometimes, engineers can just get stuck with some tools and, they're not really sure how these things are working and they're taking a long time and they're at the mercy of the tool. Right. I'm really interested in empowering people to figure out how the tools work so that they can make their process faster.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I know you have a speaker dinner to get to tonight, so I'm going to wrap this up. But if people want to follow you, say, on Twitter or GitHub, or if you have a blog or any other place where you put information out, where is all that stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my Twitter handle is I play it off legit. And
that's a long Twitter handle.
It really is. It could be much longer. I'm Steve Blue on GitHub. I just started up a blog called Dev Magnet, where I will be posting a lot of blog articles in the months to come.
Very cool. Well, thanks for coming by and talking to us. Folks can check out your workshop tomorrow.
It's Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah. Thursday from 12 to 1:50 in the Murano room. We will be building Angular with a custom script.
Very cool. And if you're on the live stream, I'm pretty sure they're live streaming all that stuff too. So
yeah.
So definitely check it out. Be ready. Follow along. It should be cool. All right. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.